You're now listening to the Adiel Gorel Show. Each episode, I'll bring you the latest news from my discussions with top health and wellness experts so that you can bring yourself into better health. Today, on the Adiel Gorel Show. So, Beth, this is really fascinating and also gives us a lot of hope because obviously you got rid of an entire mass just by cleaning things, clearing things, and simplifying. So let me ask you this. Toxins come to us from so many sources. And I remember even when you were on Life 201, you talked about it. So can you talk about the multiple sources that we get exposed, to toxins from?
Yeah, so in my book, I break it down into what goes in us, on us, and surrounds us. So first, the food that we're eating, just to be aware that if you're eating processed food, it contains a multitude of chemicals and additives and food dyes. All these have effects on us, particularly our mood. I just recently, I had some, I went to a friend's for dinner and she had these, they were keto cookies, and so I start eating them. They're, oh, no sugar, and then I was like an idiot, like, oh, let me look at the label after I ate 5 of them, and then I saw that it contained, these artificial sweeteners that just did havoc on me because I felt sick that night, and it was just interesting because my friend who eats it all the time doesn't, because I think people become acclimated to it.
That's the thing. You felt sick because you keep clean usually. So when you put something that's not clean, you will feel it more. If I have it all the time, I won't feel it as much.
That's right. But I'm thinking if you eat it all the time, it's building up in your body. So you add that to if people are drinking tap water, for example, that's not been filtered, our tap water has a lot of chemicals in it. So I always recommend people get a water filter. Then what goes on us? So what we're putting on our skin every day, women with makeup, hair stuff, anything with fragrances is also kind of a big trigger for people. I've had clients, so I go into people's homes, at least I did before COVID, right? And they would have chronic headaches and they didn't know why. And I remember I went into this one woman's home and she had, she's the one with a chronic cough. And that was, I walked into her bedroom and she had about 20 scented candles. And, I could feel my throat just tickling me and closing up. And, I said, well, this is your problem. And she couldn't believe it. She said, I light these candles every night and they relax me. What she didn't realize was the fragrance in there was really giving her a bad headache. So I had her switch out to beeswax candles and her headaches went away. But the other thing in candles is that there could be a metal wick in there, and that has lead. And I looked up at her ceiling, she had black soot up there. It was all from these lead wicks. So just things that, again, stuff that we're not aware of. We think they're on the store shelves, they're healthy and safe, but they can be problematic. And then the last thing is what surrounds us. So our cleaning products, if you can buy as natural as possible. And just because you see the word natural on the label, whether it's food or cleaners, doesn't mean that it is truly safe and non-toxic. Manufacturers use that word as a catchphrase. So you want to buy things that are truly natural. So vinegar and water is a great cleaner. Bon-Ami is better than Comet, for example. So, in my book, I list all of the healthy products that people can find and on my website.
Blown away. I like the term that I think you use. We talk about malnutrition, but there's also malillumination, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where we don't get enough of the right.
And it's going back to what I was saying a minute ago. We have these different wavelengths from the sun that interact with our physiology. And it's not just sort of random, odd thing. its millions of years of evolution of co-evolving with the sun has caused human biology to very intentionally, not coincidentally, interact with these different wavelengths of the sun and to depend on them. So just think of vitamin D, for example. I mean, we have a critically important hormone in our body that regulates over 2,000 genes, and to some extent we get some of it from the diet, but we've evolved to get that hormone from the rays of the sun. That's how deep this relationship goes with the sunlight. Similarly to, for example, vitamin C. Vitamin C is another compound that our body needs to function, and we've evolved to get it from foods, right? And we have evolved to get it from food in the sense that some animals actually produce, like dogs, for example, produce their own sufficient amounts of vitamin C. They don't depend on dietary vitamin C to have sufficient levels. Humans need to get that vitamin C in their diet. Similarly, just like we need all kinds of nutrients from our diet for our body to function normally, we also need adequate amounts of these different nutrients of light nutrients to function properly. And if we don't get them, our body starts to dysfunction. Importantly, one distinction I want to make is that it's not just about optimal, it's about normal, meaning we need adequate amounts of these types of light, not just to achieve some kind of superhuman levels of function, or, for particular purposes, like, let's say I want to use it for wound healing or muscle gain or something like that. But we need adequate amounts of these types of light just for our cells to function normally. And the absence of that light on our body creates massive dysfunction.
Yeah, I mean, so, darkness clearly has an effect on the mitochondria. I assume it's going to have an effect on healing. And also, just to go logically from what you say, it seemed like we should really sleep in a completely dark room.
An important role in two very important processes within every cell, autophagy and apoptosis. Now, autophagy means cellular cleaning, just like a dishwasher would. And apoptosis means cellular replacement. Cells that cannot undergo autophagy and apoptosis develop tumor, they lose efficiency, and they lead to all kinds of neurodegenerative disease and chronic disease simply by allowing the mitochondria to connect with the light and dark cycles, by enhancing our light exposure during the day, and by blocking all artificial light after the sunset. We can start maximizing what these mitochondria do best, which is energy production during the day and repair and healing at night. And it needs to happen in complete darkness.
If you can tell our listeners a little bit more about your method of breathing.
Sure.
And why it's so effective.
Well, the word I keep hearing is life-changing. And I've been hearing that word for a long time. In the beginning, I thought it was a discrete event, but I've been hearing it so much in the last 15 years that it really has to be something about the method that is life-changing. And again, the breath that I teach has to do a lot with how you are breathing, the how. If you are using the right muscles, if you are really supporting the nervous system, if you're using the breathing as a tool in a very deliberate way, and a very measurable way. So the life-changing or the sort of mind-altering sense of it comes that a lot of people have not been given the tools to help themselves. And this is a very, very specific, intense tool that's right under your nose that you can do to help with many different things, from things that are specifically, very physical, such as acid reflux or heartburn, to healing trauma or healing, getting closure on an event. So it really spans the breadth of it is, no pun intended, very wide, but it's also very empowering. And often there's a gap in the person's history that someone who comes to see me, they've seen specialists, they've seen doctors, they've read, they've tried to help themselves, and there's been something that's been missing. And often it is the breath.
You know, I like to take one little takeaway sometimes to simplify even our viewers. And when I was looking at your, material, by the way, I got your book years ago. It's not like I just got it so I can interview you. But one thing that really struck me, it's so simple and yet it makes an effect, is when you inhale, you do it from the bottom part of your lung, from the bottom part of your torso, and you let it expand 360 degrees. It's such a simple idea, but as I sit here, I'm doing it right now, already just this one thing makes a gigantic difference. So one of the things that I was struck by is we know intuitively, we just know, we feel better when we walk in nature, but you have something else that could be quite interesting to our viewers. You have actual measurements, in the lab. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, in fact, since 2004, I have conducted many studies to investigate the effect of fort environment, or fort Beijing, or home health. So, in fact, I conducted about over 20 experiments on the topic of fort Beijing. So, in fact, I have established a new medicine called, can you see this fort medicine? This is English book published. So I have, in fact, before the publication of the book, I have published many scientific papers in scientific journal in English. So after that, so like this, so I got a lot of evidence, lot of data on the topic of the fort Beijing, the effect of fort Beijing on home health. So in fact, I have, for the many benefits. So maybe it's you can ask me for the next question. What is the benefits of fort Beijing?
When you're visiting at Stanford, do you study those studies, or is it something different when you're at Stanford? Okay.
In Stanford University, I study the anti-cancer protein that we call the immunology of the anti-cancer. Maybe you know. So immune cell kill tumor cells but release the anti-cancer proteins. So I study the anti-cancer protein in Stanford University. But this background is very supported for my research on the fort Beijing.
Thank you for joining me today. For more videos, be sure to follow me on Facebook. Got a question? I love questions. Leave it in the comment right below.